Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you, although only virtually. The coronavirus pandemic has caused a lot of damage and heavily affected almost everything we do, our daily lives, our work, and our economies. It moved even more things to the online sphere, including this event. The pandemic has also added to the challenge Europe faces when it comes to respect our fundamental rights and values, including the right to privacy. COVID-19 has brought with it an infodemic of misinformation and disinformation. COVID-19 is a stark reminder that disinformation may cause physical harm and sow distrust in our country's ability to address the crisis. The dangers arise not only from deliberate disinformation campaigns, but also from a confusing overflow of information, especially on social media. This is why we decided to act. On the 10th of June 2020, we set out the fresh challenges encountered, including to democracy, and the immediate next steps that the Commission proposes. An important lesson from this crisis is that protecting democratic values and fundamental rights are not and should not be perceived as an obstacle to combating the pandemic. This is particularly clear in the case of privacy and disinformation. The Cambridge Analytica scandal showed us how improperly obtained personal data taken from social media users could be used to precisely target misleading messages in order to pressure sell political ideas and thus interfere in citizens' freedom to form their political decisions. We worked hard to prepare our democratic processes for this challenge in the run-up to the European elections last year, and we have continued to work in this area. We are aware that similar techniques were used to direct scams and misleading messages to particularly vulnerable citizens during the pandemic. The protection of personal data is also central to our strategy for the recovery from the pandemic. As highlighted in the Commission's recent report on the first 2 years of application of the GDPR, this regulation, having been conceived in a technology-neutral way, is an essential and flexible tool to ensure that the development of new technologies is in compliance with fundamental rights. The development of new digital tools to monitor the spread of the COVID-19 and support exit strategies is the best and most recent example. The debate around tracing apps in the member states shows that our data protection rules are part of the solution, including for ensuring the trust of citizens and, consequently, the uptake of technological tools. They can help in the gradual lifting of the restrictions and in keeping our borders open. To come back to normal, to be able to travel freely again, we realized that we need an EU common approach that is effective and ensures that our values, rights and freedoms are fully protected. This is why the Commission adopted the recommendation on a common Union toolbox for the use of technology and data to combat and exit from the COVID-19 crisis. We set out several principles to ensure the respect of fundamental rights, and in particular the right to privacy and personal data protection, and the prevention of surveillance and stigmatization. Contact tracing apps must be voluntary, secure, interoperable, and respect people's privacy. The apps should not include storing of unnecessary personal information. All apps have to be temporary only, so they will have to be deactivated as soon as the pandemic is over, and the deactivation should not depend on deinstallation by the user. The apps should function everywhere in the EU, across borders and across operating systems. Our work will continue. The Commission will present before the end of this year the European Democracy Action Plan to counter disinformation and to adapt to evolving threats and manipulations, as well as to support free and independent media. It will be constructed around the 3 integrated teams, building on the President's political guidelines: elections, integrity, and how to ensure electoral systems are free and fair; strengthening freedom of expression and the democratic debate, looking at media freedom and media pluralism, as well as at the role of the civil society; and tackling disinformation in a coherent manner, considering the need to look together at all the means used to interfere in our democratic system. Europe is uniquely well placed to lead the world in the implementation of data protection rules, to combat disinformation, and to ensure that rights are protected as we recover from the COVID-19 pandemic.